privileges of a Filipino. Take note that not all activities can be undertaken if you are not a Filipino. So if you lost your citizenship because you became a naturalized Australian citizen, then you can no longer do what you can do before. So that is why you need to apply for dual citizenship. Now I'll share my screen. There you go. So dual citizenship. Now, before we continue our discussion with dual citizenship, I'd like to emphasize that citizenship is a status, and as I mentioned, it is a relationship between individual and the state. So one advantage of being a citizen of a country is that if you are outside, for example, you are outside the Philippines and you're a Filipino citizen, then you are entitled protection by the Philippine government. And take note that other countries have treaties with the Philippines. That's why there are existing embassies and consulates. And these embassies and consulates are considered as extension of the territory of the Philippine government. And in fact, if you're a Filipino and then you wanted to be entitled with protection under Philippine laws and you're outside the Philippines, if you go inside the Philippine embassy or the consulate territory, you are entitled to protection of a Filipino citizen. Reciprocally, if you are a non-Filipino citizen and you are in the Philippines and you want to be protected with the rights and privileges of your nationality, if you go inside the embassy of your country, then you will be entitled protection because that territory is considered as an extension of the territory of your country, and the rights and the privileges, the laws of your country is enforceable in that territory. Now, citizenship. What are the rights if you're a citizen? Now, common would be right to vote and the right to be voted for. Now, these are called political rights. Other type of rights would be economic rights, right to engage into a business, right to own properties, and the other one would be social rights. Now, citizenship may be lost but can be reacquired. Now, citizenship may be lost if you, for example, you're in Australia and you're already an Australian citizen because of marriage to an Australian national, or because you applied voluntarily for Australian citizenship. You will automatically lose your Philippine citizenship, but you can reacquire it under Republic Act 9225. Now, dual citizenship is a means for further empowerment. It can only add to what a naturalized Australian citizen already enjoys and cannot take away anything in terms of benefits, rights, and privileges. Now, dual citizenship is a fiction. Why am I telling this? Because you cannot be a dual citizen in one country. So that means if you are a Filipino-Australian, because you apply for dual citizenship, if you go to the Philippines, then you are considered as a Philippine national. If you go to Australia, then you are considered as an Australian citizen. So you cannot have this dual citizenship status in one country. It is a fiction of the mind. And as I'm telling, if you're in the Philippines, then you can invoke your right as a Filipino. And if you're in Australia, you can invoke the right as an Australian citizen. Let's continue. Now, the law that is currently enforceable is the Philippine Dual Citizenship Law, or the Citizenship Retention Act of 2003. This is a law that allows natural-born Filipino citizens who have been naturalized as citizens of another country to regain or retain their Philippine citizenship and all other benefits and privileges. Now, what are these rights and privileges? Number one, if you are a dual citizen, you have the right to be issued a Philippine passport. Other one would be the right to live and stay in the Philippines visa-free and for an indefinite period of time. Now, if you are an Australian citizen and you have not applied for dual citizenship, you will be under the Balikbayan program, which will only allow you to be in the Philippines for a year. Now, that is one of the benefits of being a dual citizen because your stay will be indefinite. At present, because of COVID, there is a memorandum or a resolution issued by the IATF saying that if you are a Filipino, you can come to the Philippines indefinite, but that's not only as of the moment because of the pandemic. Third would be the right to practice one's profession. Now, an example to this would be if you are a lawyer in the Philippines before you lost your Philippine citizenship, and then you're already an Australian, the question is, can you still practice Philippine law being a lawyer? The answer would be no, if you will not apply for dual citizenship. Why? Because the main requirement for practicing law in the Philippines is that you are a Filipino citizen, a natural-born Filipino citizen. So that is one of the benefits of being a dual citizen. And take note that there are two types of citizens, the natural-born and the not natural-born. I don't want to make a deeper discussion with that, but as I mentioned, one of the benefits of a dual citizen is that you can practice your profession in the Philippines. That requires citizenship eligibility requirement. Fourth would be the right to engage in business, including investment in sectors or industries reserved wholly or partly to Filipino citizens or Philippine companies. Now, we are discussing this because, as I mentioned, citizenship to one country has certain rights and privileges that non-citizens of that country cannot enjoy. Now, if you're an Australian citizen only, then you cannot enjoy these benefits that are accorded to Filipino citizens. However, if you apply for dual citizenship, then that's good because even if you're already an Australian, you can still do or exercise economic rights that are accorded to Filipino citizens. Sorry. The right to register and vote in Philippine elections. Now, take note that the current news allows a registration of voters be extended until October 14. So, we know that election is very important because this is the method of expression of who you want to govern the country. And aside from that would be the right to own real property beyond the legal limits prescribed for former citizens. We will discuss that thoroughly. And last would be the right to be appointed or elected to public offices under certain conditions. Now, as to taxation, sorry. The concern here is about double taxation. Now, it is said that dual citizens, for as long as they're considered residing outside of the Philippines, shall be exempt from paying income tax on their income earned abroad. Income tax paid to the government of either country shall be deducted from the tax payable to the government of the other country. So that means no instant shall an individual be subject to tax both Philippines and in Australia on the same income. Sorry. Now, what about property rights? Now, before the passage of the Republic Act 1925, the prevailing law was the Foreign Investment Act of 1991. It allows natural-born Filipinos who have been naturalized to own only up to 5,000 square meters in the case of urban lands and 3 hectares in case of rural lands. Now, if you are a dual citizen, these limitations as to the number of square meters and hectares will be not applicable. The reacquisition and retention of Philippine citizenship under Republic Act 9225 states that dual citizens may legally invest in private land with no size limits, except in the case of agricultural land covered by agrarian reform laws. Also, foreigners, natural-born or not natural-born, may own condominiums in the Philippines subject to the maximum foreign ownership allowed, which is 40% of the entire condominium project. Now, as to condominium, there's a separate law. Regardless of the nationality of the particular individual, they can own a condominium unit in the Philippines, subject to the maximum foreign ownership only of 40%. Now, as to the right to vote and public office, the passage of dual citizenship law complements the overseas absentee voting law, or the Republic Act 9189, where Republic Act 9189 limited its application to overseas workers, immigrants, and other Filipinos living or working in other countries. Republic Act 9225 broadens the scope of overseas voting to include dual citizens. So even if we are here, if you are not in the Philippines and you are dual citizen, and you are not an overseas worker, an immigrant, or the other Filipinos living or working in other countries but have not taken up another citizenship, you can exercise your right to vote under Republic Act 9225. Now, a question that is frequently asked is whether a dual citizen can run for an elective position. Now, the answer would be yes, provided that at the time of the filing of the certificate of candidacy with the COMELEC, that candidate renounced his or her citizenship of the other country. Why? Because the candidate must only devote to one country, cannot be loyal in 2 countries. That's why there's a requirement that he must renounce his loyalty or citizenship with the other country. The right to vote and be elected or appointed to public office is not available on the following: those who are running for or occupying public office in the other country, and those who are in active service as commissioned or non-commissioned officers in the armed forces of that country. So these are the exceptions to the rule that a dual citizen can run for an elective position in the Philippines. First, if the candidate is running for a public office in other country of nationality, and those who are in active service as commissioned or non-commissioned officers of the armed forces of the other country. Now, what about minor children? There is such thing as called derivative citizenship. Now, if you apply for dual citizenship, then automatically children, whether legitimate illegitimate or adopted shall also be deemed citizens of the Philippines. So if you were granted dual citizenship, then automatically your children, whether they be illegitimate, adopted, or legitimate, shall be considered as citizens of the Philippines by virtue of the so-called derivative citizenship. Now, to take full advantage of this provision, applicants for dual citizenship are advised to include such children in their application, specifying their names, ages, and dates of birth. This is particularly important to those who intend to send their children to school in the Philippines and protect them from discrimination or from being categorized as aliens or foreign students. Now, what about application fees? Now, applicants are required to present two documents. First is the proof of being a natural-born Filipino citizen, which could be any of the following: birth certificate, baptismal certificate, Philippine passport, and second is the proof of naturalization as a foreign citizen or a citizen, Australian citizenship certificate. Now, the fee is